The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
I'm Vinnie Politan, and welcome to the Court TV podcast. This week, we have an audio edition of our original series, Accomplice to Murder with Vinnie Politan, which looks at cases and verdicts that may not be as clear-cut as originally thought.
This is the Court TV podcast with Vinnie Politan.
He was in the same draft with Kobe Bryant. You had Elvis, you had Penny Hardaway, and then you got Lorenzen.
North Carolina 911, where's your emergency? Hello?
In the woods behind me, they made a gruesome discovery.
This morning, the Shelby grand jury indicted Billy R. Turner.
Who is Billy Ray Turner? How does he have any connection to Lorenzen Wright?
The mastermind in this case, it was not Billy Ray Turner.
She said, it's him or me. He has to get on me. He has to be gone.
Jimmy Martin, who is a very shady guy, he comes forward and admits that he had a role in the conspiracy to kill Lorenzen Wright.
She planned, she plotted. She's the reason why he's gone.
We're here today in Memphis, Tennessee, cradle of the civil rights movement, home of the blues, and the birthplace of rock and roll. It's also the home to the Memphis Grizzlies and NBA star and hometown hero Lorenzen Wright. But when Wright went missing in July of 2010, it would take over a decade to uncover the truth behind his disappearance. And the trial for those responsible for his disappearance would leave some wondering if justice had truly been served.
Lorenzen as a kid was a big, tall, clumsy knucklehead. When you first meet Lorenzen, the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna fall in love with his smile, his conversation, and then basketball was just an added bonus. Once he played basketball, that's when he really became popular.
Lorenzen became a standout basketball player at Booker T. Washington High School in Memphis.
Basketball coach decided to put him on the high school team at 8th grade. By 9th grade, 10th grade year, he's one of the top players, not only in state, but in the country by 10th grade. So at that point, that we all knew that he was going to be something.
After being named a McDonald's All-American and leading his Memphis high school to a state championship, Lorenzen could have played college hoops anywhere, but he chose to stay in Tennessee and play for the Memphis Tigers at the University of Memphis.
We knew that his career at Memphis wasn't going to be short-lived because he was really, really good.
He was so good that after his sophomore year, Lorenzen decided to go pro and declare for the NBA draft. He was immediately snapped up by the LA Clippers as the number 7 pick in the draft.
I was just overwhelmed, amazed, excited, in shock that he went so high. He was in the same draft with Kobe Bryant and got picked higher than Kobe Bryant, you know?
Lorenzen would go on to play for the Atlanta Hawks, Sacramento Kings, Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Memphis Grizzlies during his 13 years in the NBA. He was a force wherever he went, but it was in Memphis with the Grizzlies that he truly thrived, and the city loved him for it.
The people of Memphis, they embraced Lorenzen and loved him on a whole nother level. You had Elvis, you had Penny Hardaway, and then you got Lorenzen.
But then, on July 18th, 2010, Lorenzen simply vanished.
Lorenzen was expected to show up at a family function, a baby shower. He didn't show up. He wasn't answering any calls.
When Lorenzen went missing the first few days, I personally wasn't worried at all because he's known to do a disappearing act on us. He'd done it several times before. But his mother, Deborah, she knew that something was wrong, so she kept pressing me.
But with the police saying they did not suspect foul play, Lorenzen's family reached out to the media to bring attention to his disappearance.
Deborah, Lorenzen's mother, is the first to go to police and reporting missing. And it instantly, catches on with the local media just because of Lorenzen's stature in the community and, reputation as a, pillar and hometown hero.
As the days passed, the media attention grew, and almost a week after his disappearance, Lorenzen's ex-wife, Sherra, spoke directly with news crews who visited her home.
He was fine. And he's fine now. I'm not going to believe anything other than that. He's fine now.
After those days went by, you can only think the worst because no one has heard from him.
And then, investigators made a chilling discovery. The last night he had been seen alive, Lorenzen had called 911 from his phone around midnight.
Starting on 911, where's your emergency? Hello? Hello?
Unfortunately, the 911 operator failed to pursue the call, and over a week would pass before police knew of its existence.
After investigators discovered the 911 recording, they traced Lorenzen's call to this area on the outskirts of Memphis. And in the woods behind me, just a few hundred feet, they made a gruesome discovery: the decomposing remains of Memphis's hometown hero, Lorenzen Wright.
His dad, Herb, had called me crying, said, Mike G, we found him, they found him. I just threw the phone down. I just couldn't believe it. I just didn't want to believe it.
As news spread that Lorenzen's body had been found, family, friends, and fans began to gather near the crime scene, his mother placing flowers where her son fell. Over the next week, the city of Memphis gathered to mourn the passing of their native son. Lorenzen's ex-wife, Sherra, was there, along with their 6 children. The question on everyone's mind: who had killed Lorenzen Wright?
Investigators didn't find many clues at the crime scene: some spent shell casings, some bottles and cans, and a Virginia Slims cigarette butt and some cherry chapstick. They did find evidence of some cut barbed wire. Now, the barbed wire is no longer here, but this post that used to hold it is. And what was also missing at the time was 6 to 8 feet of this barbed wire, which somehow mysteriously disappeared.
The crime scene itself was cleaned up. Barbed wire was cut from the fence and items taken away. And so huge head start for the criminals from the very start because of the police mix-up with a 911 call.
As the investigation wore on, reports began to surface that Lorenzen had been experiencing financial trouble in the months leading up to his murder, trouble that followed on the heels of turmoil in his marriage to Sherra.
Well, it seems like as his career began to fade, their relationship began to disintegrate amid allegations of infidelity and, their lifestyle changing, as he exited the NBA, and eventually Sherra filed for a divorce.
Sherra was one of the last people to see Lorenzen alive, and she hinted that he had gotten caught up in the wrong crowd.
Sherra tells police that he left her house, he came back to her house with some drugs, and she overheard him, having some conversation related to some drug deal. And that's really all we, hear from Sherra about Lorenzen's last moments.
I know Lorenzen better than probably he knows himself at some time. Lorenzen's not into drugs. He might have smoked a little weed every now and then. But as far as him trying to sell drugs or flip something, that's totally beyond Lorenzen's character. So I knew that was 100% false. And so from that point on, anything that came out of Sherra's mouth, I had a hard time believing.
But weeks turned into months, and months into years. While Lorenzen's mother tried her best to keep national attention on his death and police searching for her son's killer, the investigation slowly went cold. Sherra moved with her children to California, surfacing in the media to promote her book, Mr. Tell Me Anything. It was about a woman, Sharon, trapped in an abusive relationship with a 6'11" NBA player from Mississippi. Lorenzen's family and friends were close to giving up hope that his killer or killers would ever be brought to justice. And then, in November 2017, a breakthrough.
7 years after a Memphis basketball star was killed, there is a major break in the case.
We are seeing the spot where police say they recovered the gun used to kill Lorenzen Wright.
The lake is off Highway 72 in Walnut, Mississippi. That lake is not easy to get to.
This wasn't just the first bit of information that we'd heard in a long time, but it was a huge development in the case, that really raised hopes that we were finally getting closer to some answers about, who was involved and what led to Lorenzen's death.
And indeed, shortly after the gun was recovered, prosecutors announced the arrest of a suspect in the murder of Lorenzen Wright.
This morning, the Shelby County grand jury indicted Billy R. Turner for the premeditated first-degree murder of Lorenzen Wright.
But Turner denies any involvement in Wright's death.
Indeed, at first glance, Billy Ray Turner seems like the last person who would be involved in a murder. He was a well-liked deacon at a church outside of Memphis, and those who knew him were shocked at his arrest.
This is a little curious, to members of the public, because it's like, who is Billy Ray Turner? How does he have any connection to Lorenzen Wright?
The public would soon find out when police announce that they have arrested and charged another suspect with the murder of Lorenzen Wright.
Sherra Wright Robinson has been indicted for conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, criminal attempt first-degree murder, and first-degree murder for her ex-husband, Lorenzen Wright.
And it soon comes out that, Billy Ray Turner knew Sherra Wright. He did yard work for her. They knew each other through church.
And according to the indictment, they also knew each other because they had conspired to kill Lorenzen Wright, which they had done by acquiring firearms and recruiting an unindicted co-conspirator to help.
I didn't want to believe she had anything to do with it. Even once they arrested her, I still didn't want to believe she had anything to do with it because that's not the Sherra I know.
But then, the prosecutor's office announced that they had struck a deal with Sherra. She agreed to plead guilty to facilitation to commit first-degree murder and was given a 30-year prison sentence with the possibility of parole after 7 years.
It was a substantial sentence that the family wanted, and it was a step toward justice. And like I said, on these cold cases, it's very important from a prosecutor's perspective that you be realistic.
But not everyone was satisfied with Sherra's punishment.
Who was the mastermind behind this? None of this would have happened without her. Lorenzen would still be here now if it wasn't for her. She planned, she plotted. She's the reason why he's gone. He got life. She should have got life.
Our preference would have been for Billy Ray Turner to tell the truth and testify against Sherra Wright and have a trial. That would have been the family's preference too, but unfortunately we weren't able to go that route.
Was Billy Ray Turner really Sherra's accomplice to the murder of Lorenzen Wright? Or was he the fall guy for a crime he didn't commit? Turner's trial begins when we return.
It had taken police nearly a decade to solve the murder of NBA star and Memphis native Lorenzen Wright. With his ex-wife pleading guilty to facilitating his murder, her accomplice, Billy Ray Turner, went on trial in the courthouse behind me in March of 2022.
Heading up the state's case is Deputy District Attorney General Paul Hagerman.
What does it take to kill a father, son, a man who had Memphis running through his veins?
He is a veteran prosecutor of this office, tried, many homicide cases. And he sort of brings to it this, quiet, deliberate, measured tone that really comes across in his questioning and in his opening statement.
First male voice, the caller, Lorenzen Wright. Second male voice is the killer. And then we hear gunshot after gunshot after gunshot.
Georgetown 911, where's your emergency? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Well, what's interesting about the state's opening is that they didn't shy away from the fact that police really screwed up in the beginning.
Isn't that what happens when you call 911 and something like that happens? Gunshots, end of phone call. Let's find out where this phone call was coming from.
We were going to embrace the fact that the police failed to do what they should have done in the original investigation.
You want me to tell you what Germantown did with that 911 call? They didn't even look to see where it was from. They didn't even tell other jurisdictions, hey, gunshots, end of call. This sounded really bad. They did nothing.
One of the things I invited the jury to do is be like us, trying to solve this cold case that should have been solved 7 years ago. Sit here, work hard, listen to detailed proof about text messages, about phone locations, about everything else, and see how this comes together despite all the errors that were made back in 2010 and 2011.
Loosely translated, with little physical evidence, the prosecution was going to make a circumstantial case, and there was one person at the center of that case.
The mastermind in this case, it was not Billy Ray Turner. In many ways, he was manipulated. It was Sherra.
One of the prosecution's first witnesses was Deborah Martin, Lorenzen's mother.
Played for Memphis?
Yes.
Did real good?
Yes, he did.
Did he play basketball after that?
Yes, he went to the NBA. Before it was time to graduate, I told him, nope, you can't go to the NBA. Well, you got to go to get your degree. And he said, Mama, where am I going to get $1 million with a degree? Y'all know I thought about 10 minutes and I said, when you say you leaving? I'm feared because I couldn't give no answer.
You lost that argument quick.
Yes, I did.
Deborah said she started to worry when Lorenzen didn't return her calls.
What calls you call Lorenzen?
I wanted to fuss at him for not making it to that baby shower, and we already talked about this. I'm like, oh, I wish I would play the message I left. Like, where are you? Call me ASAP.
And you didn't hear from him?
Didn't hear from him. Nobody else had heard from him.
Did you talk to Sherra?
Oh, yeah. If she said the police better do their job, that's what she said.
Did what she tell you made any sense at all?
None of it. Nothing makes sense.
Did it cause you to feel any certain way?
Like she knew something, but wasn't saying.
At this point, it'd be fair to say that he'd been missing for 2 or 3 days.
Oh, yeah.
And was your understanding that Sherra Wright never called?
Nope, she never did. Nope.
You had to.
I had to.
She gave statements that didn't particularly make sense to investigators, and she gave statements that were inconsistent with each other.
Sherra's behavior raised enough suspicion at the time that the Memphis police tapped into her phone and extracted Sherra's text messages and call history. The day before he was murdered, investigators found that Sherra had sent a series of explicit text messages to Lorenzen in Atlanta, messages describing in graphic detail all of the things she wanted to do to him and with him if he would come visit her in Memphis.
This text messages indicate where she wants him to come.
To Memphis.
Memphis?
Yes.
For sexual reasons?
Correct.
To her?
Yes.
She remained a very suspicious character as they looked into the people that she associated with and the people she talked to that night or texted with that night.
One of those individuals was Billy Ray Turner. The state called to the stand an investigator from the Digital Forensics Unit to describe one particularly suspicious text.
So now we're going to look at the actual instant messages between Sherra Wright and Billy Turner on July 18, 2010. And we can see the body of the message reads, I'm going to need my commission, ... Ren want you to bring your cards in the AM before he fly out, ... You owe me, boy, ! So this is essentially 28 minutes before the 911 call.
This suspicious text to Billy right before Lorenzen was killed is something that got their attention. What also got their attention is when they started looking at those phone records, she was in regular contact with Billy up till the murder.
We were basing this off of Billy Turner's records. So we found 186 calls between July 5th, 2010 and August 5th, 2000.
Investigators also pointed to cell tower records that appeared to show Billy Ray Turner in the area when Lorenzen called 911.
So you're talking 1240 13 minutes after midnight, and then 1 minute later, Mr. Turner's getting a call, and his tower location is overlaying with that exact ending call tower that Mr. Lorenzen had. So they're in the exact same area, coverage area.
But as suspicious as the calls may have been, investigators had no physical evidence to tie either Billy or Sherra to the murder.
They were able to confirm a lot of suspicious behavior, but there wasn't enough at that time to charge anybody.
The case would languish for years until, out of the blue, a second accomplice stepped forward.
Jimmy Martin, who is a very shady guy, criminal, a convicted murderer, he comes forward and admits that he had a role in the conspiracy to kill Lorenzen Wright.
Jimmy says he can tell police exactly who killed the NBA star, but there's a catch. He had already been convicted of second-degree murder for killing his girlfriend. He wanted immunity for his role in Lorenzen's murder. Prosecutors agreed.
He walked investigators through a conspiracy to kill Lorenzen Wright, that he and Billy were both supposed to be there, and Sherra and Billy, however, did it one night without him.
Jimmy led the police to the lake where divers eventually retrieved one of the handguns used to kill Lorenzen Wright. He also tells police that he remembered a pregnant woman being present when Sherra was talking with him and Billy about killing Lorenzen.
When we found Claudia Robinson, that was a huge development.
Claudia Robinson was Sherra's cousin and had been pregnant when Lorenzen was killed.
She worked as a nanny in the house. She remembered Jimmy. She remembered Billy. She remembered at least 2 conversations where Sherra was talking with Jimmy and or Billy there about killing Lorenzen Wright, and things really came together.
The prosecution had presented the jury with circumstantial evidence linking Billy Ray Turner to the murder of Lorenzen Wright. Now they were about to hear from prosecution witnesses directly implicating Turner in the planning and execution of the murder.
The prosecution's first eyewitness was Claudia Robinson, Sherra Wright's cousin and nanny at the time Lorenzen was murdered.
She doesn't have the details and everything because she wasn't involved in the entire conspiracy and the murder and the cover-up. But in some sense, she's as important as Jimmy because, from Sherra's own mouth, she hears X. Billy's sitting right there and Jimmy's sitting right there. So she's an incredibly important witness.
Did you ever see an individual named Billy Turner over at Sherra's home?
I did.
You see him here in the courtroom today?
That's Billy, right there.
Sorry. During that time over there, did you ever, or were you present during any kind of a meeting he and Sherra had?
I was in the kitchen preparing lunch for the children, and Sherra and Billy entered the kitchen, and Sherra was just irate, saying Lorenzen had a hit on her. She had been told that he had a hit on her.
Like a hit, like to kill her?
Yes, sir.
What else was said?
I said, surely that's not so. It's no way you believe that. But she insisted he has a hit on me.
And what did Mr. Turner say in response?
He was just standing there, like I said, eventually, because she was just so irate. Like, he has a hit on me, so he was like, what do you want, Sherra? And she said, what do you mean? He has to be gone. It's him or me.
A few days later, Claudia said she was folding laundry in the room next to the kitchen when Sherra's cousin, Jimmy Martin, who she called Jay, came by to pick up some money. Sherra, Billy, and Jimmy were in the kitchen when Sherra again brought up Lorenzen, saying, I can't believe he has a hit out on me. He wants me gone. When Claudia said, surely you're not still on this. What about your children? They shouldn't be put through this. Sherra responded, it has to be him or me. At this point, Jimmy, nodding towards Claudia, asked Sherra, is she going to be a problem? And Sherra responded, no, because she can get offed too.
And Sherra said that you can get offed too?
Yes.
Meaning killed?
Yes.
Mr. Turner have anything to say about that?
He didn't say.
While Claudia was key to the prosecution's case, she paled in comparison to their next witness, Jimmy Martin.
Prosecutors are stuck with Jimmy Martin as a witness because he is the only one who has led them to any real physical evidence of the crime, the murder weapon. Jimmy Martin's appearance on the stand was a big moment in the case. It was a big moment in the courtroom. Everybody knew this was the witness we had been waiting for.
May of 2010, okay? Did Sherra Wright approach you with any sort of proposition?
Sherra came to Batesville. She was telling me about that Ren needed somebody to take care of his Rottweilers.
So Sherra comes to Batesville and asks you about the Rottweilers.
Yeah. But when she brings me to Memphis, I get to the house and the whole subject matter changed.
What do you mean by that?
It went from, I got a job for you, that I'm thinking I'm talking about the dogs, to a ploy to kill Lorenzen Wright.
Ploy to kill Lorenzen Wright.
Right.
This is the same conversation that Claudia had testified to hearing. Once she left, Jimmy says the conversation shifted to actually planning the murder.
After that, they get into a brainstorming session on, well, if we do this, how best to do it.
And you say they were coming up with ways.
We were.
You were too, weren't you?
Yeah.
Do you remember details about ways y'all talked about?
Like just, you gotta catch them somewhere where there ain't a lot of people.
Martin says that a few days later, Sherra called him to another meeting at her home.
Is there anybody else at her house the second time?
Me, Sherra, Billy, and some other gentleman.
Jimmy said the unknown man was in the living room and didn't join them in the kitchen.
Do you know if he was part of this thing or not?
I don't know who he was.
His second time, are there more detailed plans?
Yeah, there's more detailed plans and there's weapons involved.
Eventually, Jimmy said that he and Billy agreed to take the weapons, a .25 caliber and 9mm handgun, and drive to Atlanta to shoot Lorenzen at his condo there. They parked nearby, armed themselves with the handguns, and approached Lorenzen's building. They entered through a window that Sherra said she had unlocked the last time she was at Lorenzen's place. But when they got to the living room, they discovered someone asleep on the couch. The two crept within just feet of that sleeping figure, confirmed it was not Lorenzen, and decided to get out. They left the same way they came in and drove to a nearby IHOP, where Jimmy says Billy called Sherra to report what had happened. When Lorenzen's mother learned about it in court, she called up Michael Gibson.
Deborah called me and said, Mike G, you're lucky to be alive. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, they made an attempt to kill Lorenzen in Atlanta. And they climbed through the window and they came in and they saw you, because they described you to a T, so I knew it was you. She said they saw you land on the couch, didn't see Lorenzen, and decided to leave. My heart just dropped. I'm like, whoa.
After the failed Atlanta attempt, Jimmy says he didn't see Sherra until she picked him up in Batesville, Mississippi, and without telling him why, drove him to Memphis.
What y'all talk about on the way to Memphis?
She said the plan of the murder of Lorenzen had went through.
Like the murder of Lorenzen had happened?
Yeah.
Jimmy says they drove to the woods near where the murder happened and met Billy, who was holding wire cutters and standing by a barbed wire fence.
Sherra was basically explaining to her, like, yeah, we jumped the fence and we don't want to leave anything behind, so we're gonna cut the fence.
She's talking about the night of the murder.
Night of the murder, correct.
Did she tell you what happened at the time of the murder?
She said that she told Lorenzen that she was going to meet somebody for some money. That's when she met up with Billy, I guess on this abandoned rural road.
According to Jimmy, Sherra told him that when Lorenzen had his back turned, she and Billy took out handguns and began shooting. Lorenzen started running, jumping, she said, like a deer over the barbed wire fence. The two gave chase, and after Lorenzen fell, she said they caught up with him, both fired their guns into him until he was dead.
Side of the road, you've heard what's happened to her, right?
Yes, sir.
Has Billy at this point told you what happened?
No, sir.
What do y'all do?
Cut the fence, wrap it up.
What do y'all do next?
Proceed to a dump and get rid of her.
A few days later, Jimmy says Billy took him to a remote lake in Mississippi and walked down to the water with 2 guns.
Billy walks to the lake. Are you actually able to see the gun flying through the air and hitting the water?
Yes, sir.
What all is he throwing?
I remember it was a shotgun or shotgun shells also in the car. He threw the pistol away and he went it down a couple ways and threw the shotgun.
The prosecution relied heavily on the testimony of Claudia Robinson and Jimmy Martin to make its case that Billy Ray Turner was an active participant in the murder of Lorenzen Wright. Now the defense was taking aim at the credibility of these key witnesses.
You signed an immunity agreement from prosecution, right?
I did.
And you signed your immunity agreement from prosecution because they told you that they thought they had you in the middle of a conspiracy, right?
John Keith Perry is a very good attorney. To the benefit of his client, he is incredibly aggressive at trial, and I thought he was incredibly aggressive at this trial.
That's not true.
That's not true. So you just signed an immunity agreement for the hell of it?
I did not. I signed it for my protection because, of course, I was at a house where a conversation was made, so...
Claudia Robinson, didn't come forward with this information until 2017 or so. And the defense, points this out and asks why.
He was a brother to you.
He was.
But you never described this conversation regarding a murder plot with police from the time that he was killed until the time in 2017 that some stranger walked up and talked to you. Is that true?
Of course I didn't. Why would you? If your life has already been threatened, it's not that easy. You don't know that she'll do it, but if she's adamant about something being done, then she don't care enough about me not to do it to me too.
Are you finished?
I am.
You never told the police any of this in 2017, correct?
I didn't tell them that she threatened my life. Yes, I did.
You told the police prior to 2017?
No, not prior to being. No,
you.
not prior to being brought in for questioning. No, I did not.
Well, the interesting thing about Claudia Robinson is that she, admits on cross-examination that she never heard Billy Ray Turner agree to anything.
And to be clear, when you described the conversation regarding what Billy was supposed to have said, Billy never said that he was going to participate in killing anybody, did he?
I didn't say that.
I know that's a question, though, and it's a closing question.
No.
And Billy never laid out any plan or described anything at that time, did he?
No.
So she testifies to his presence, but she doesn't really offer any solid evidence that he was actively engaged in this plot.
With Claudia Robinson admitting she never heard Billy Ray Turner agree to or even talk about killing Lorenzen, the prosecution's case that Billy was involved in the murder rested almost entirely on the testimony of Jimmy Martin.
Jimmy Martin, is a sketchy guy with a sketchy criminal past, and he came forward after he was in prison when he had nothing to lose and everything to gain.
Jimmy Martin had been given immunity in exchange for his testimony, and he was in prison awaiting sentencing for murdering his fiancée when he struck that deal. Even the prosecution was nervous about their star witness.
He's a criminal. He's a convicted murderer. He has lied in the past about this thing. Yeah, you're super nervous before you put on a witness like Jimmy Martin.
What does it take to take a person's life on a dark road?
John Perry made no secret of his dislike for Jimmy Martin while he was on the stand.
It takes a punk's heart that's sitting in prison right now for taking a firearm and shooting his wife or his fiancée that he lives with to death. It takes that type of a punk.
The defense did a pretty good job of showing that Jimmy Martin acted opportunistically.
Well, guess what the state of Tennessee did? That when this guy says, hey, you know what? I can figure out the murder for you before my sentencing. they give him a permanent get out of jail free card. So this unindicted co-conspirator is a farce. It's a lie. It's nothing.
One glaring weakness in Jimmy's story was his whereabouts the night of the murder.
On the night in question, nobody can validate your whereabouts, right? Nobody verified your whereabouts, correct? In all this time, nobody's verified. Nobody.
In fact, Jimmy had been asked that same question when detectives interviewed him in 2017.
A few times they asked you, now tell us, were you really there that night? Were you there? Remember those questions?
Listen.
And you kept kind of breathing and doing different things when they had asked you, but you never really directly answered it, did you?
I don't.
Okay.
But it was actually the discrepancy between what Jimmy told investigators in 2017 and what he testified to in court that the defense would target to damage his credibility. For example, Jimmy gave them a much more detailed account of the meeting at Sherra's house where an unidentified man was present. When testifying in court, he omitted a key detail, one that significantly undermined the credibility of the state's other main witness, Claudia Robinson.
Yesterday, you were asked questions about money. You didn't describe that the pregnant lady was told that she was supposed to get $10,000 for hush money, did you? But back in 2017, that's what you told the detectives, right?
Yes, sir.
And you also described that Sherra had said that it would be $50,000 for the shooter, correct?
Yes.
There was another key difference in Jimmy's original story. He made no mention that Billy Ray Turner was even there.
You never indicated that Billy was present during those conversations, did you?
I don't know if I was asked.
Okay, but what I'm asking you is, you never indicated it, did you? I mean, you might not have been asking, but you didn't say Billy was it. You definitely didn't say Billy confirmed that he needed money or anything along those lines, right?
No, sir. No, sir.
Now, back then, were you working?
No, sir. No.
All right.
In fact, if anyone needed the $50,000 that Sherra was allegedly offering to murder her husband, it was Jimmy. He was the one facing an expensive court battle for allegedly murdering his fiancée.
Like you said to the detective, man, all I cared about, I had these lawyers to fight a real case, right?
Yes, sir.
And we can't go into the details or talk about what the case is, but that's what your focus was on, right?
Yes, sir.
And you said, look, man, them lawyers are asking 10 a pop, 10, 10, 10. That's what you said, correct?
Yes, sir.
Those are your words.
Yes, sir.
When we return, the defense puts on their only witness, and the jury returns with a verdict.
Was there anything odd or rushed about him or nervous acting about him at all?
No.
You said that he was one of the last to leave, and he did help you clean up everything.
He did. Mm-hmm.
At the trial of Billy Ray Turner for the murder of Lorenzen Wright, the defense had attacked the credibility of the state's key witnesses. Before resting its case, the defense called their sole witness, a friend of Billy's from church who hosted him at a cookout the night Lorenzen had been killed.
Do you know a Billy Ray Turner?
I do.
How do you know Mr. Turner?
He's a family friend and also a church member.
On that particular day, or that weekend, did he come to your home as a visitor?
He did.
Which day?
On Sunday.
That would have been July 18th?
Yes, correct.
Not only did she speak to his possible whereabouts, then the night in question, but she also spoke about his character.
Would it have been odd for Billy to loan his car to anybody?
No. He was always doing whatever he can to help anyone.
Goes back to the defense trying to show that Billy Ray Turner is a good guy. He would help anyone in need. He even did help Jimmy. He loaned Jimmy his car because Sherra told him that he needed it for a DJ gig.
Was there anything odd or rushed about him or nervous acting about him at all?
No.
And you said that he was one of the last to leave, and he did help you clean up everything.
He did. Mm-hmm.
Do you remember approximately when Billy would have left your home?
I would say around 10.
I don't have anything further on it.
Sagerman.
this was a strong witness, one of a few civilian witnesses who didn't speak in police jargon, who didn't speak in, technical terms, who just spoke to the jury as a person.
John Keith Perry focused on Jimmy Martin in his closing arguments.
I want you all to listen to what's going on and to measure Jimmy Martin and to see if Jimmy Martin is who I believe that he is. A stone cold, sitting on the back of Callis Creek killer.
As for the prosecution, they said there was just too much circumstantial evidence to ignore.
I mean, think about the craziness you got to come up with in your head for the alternative to Billy Turner being guilty. He has got to be framed, and all these witnesses have to be in it. That's nonsense. That's nonsense.
It had been over a decade since the body of Memphis native son and basketball star Lorenzen Wright had been found shot to death in the woods outside of Memphis. Now, his family, friends, and fans would find out if the accomplice to his murder would be found guilty.
It's Billy Ray Turner. Stand, please, sir. Count 1, first-degree murder. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree murder as charged in count 1 of the indictment. Count 2, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. The verdict reads as follows. We, the jury...
We felt relieved, not satisfied, but relieved, because the only satisfaction that we could get is bringing Lorenzen back, and we know that's impossible. It's not justice, because Cheryl is the mastermind behind all this, so we can point fingers at Billy Ray, we can point fingers at Jimmy Martin, but at the end of the day, Lorenzen's not here because of one person.
After being found guilty of the murder of NBA star Lorenzen Wright, Billy Ray Turner was sentenced to life in prison and is currently being held at the Turney Center Industrial Complex, about 2.5 hours from Memphis.
We reached out to Billy in prison to get his side of the story. Over the course of a 30-minute phone call, he insisted that he had no connection with the murder of Lorenzen Wright. He says he only met James Martin a few times, and while he was at Sherra's home during the 2 meetings Claudia and Jimmy testified about, he said he was doing yard work and didn't hear any of the conversation. He maintains his defense that it was actually Jimmy who helped kill Lorenzen and then blamed Billy for it. He also believes the unidentified man at the second meeting participated in the murder, and also pointed out that police never recovered the shotgun Jimmy said Billy threw in the lake along with that handgun. As for the cell tower evidence, it only showed his phone pinging the same tower as Lorenzen's 911 call, a broad area covering many miles, and that if investigators used GPS to track his phone, it would prove he was innocent.
Lorenzen's long journey ended in the quiet cemetery behind me. He won't soon be forgotten by family, friends, and fans that he touched along the way on his rise from that small town in Mississippi to NBA stardom to his resting place alongside other greats from Memphis.
I want people to remember Lorenzen by all the good things he did. Remember Lorenzen as a big kid, a family man. He's touched the lives and hearts of so many people.
That's all for this week. For more Court TV original productions, check out the show notes where you can find links to stream them all for free on the Court TV website. And you can see me on my shows, Closing Arguments with Vinnie Politan, every weeknight at 8 p.m. Eastern, and Vinnie Politan Investigates at 9 p.m. Eastern. Thank you so much for downloading, and as always, please don't forget to hug the kids.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to CourtTV.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.